Bitcoin breaks above 100,000 US dollars for the first time as Donald Trump continues to build out a pro crypto team. We cover all this right now in the Collective Shift weekly recap, actionable insights, and a breakdown into the crypto market, all in under 30 minutes. Nick, a big milestone last week, hey?
Yeah, absolutely massive. And it actually came at a very interesting time for the team when we were doing our Collective Shift Summit. And as we were doing it, and in the lead up to I think it was the uh, Bitcoin Where to From Now panel, it hit the 100K mark. So who knows? They were calling it the Collective Shift Summit Pump. So a lot to look forward to. Huge week. A little bit of a retrace, in the last few hours, last day, Matt. Maybe you can fill us in on where we're at the moment.
Yeah, we've sort of gone up above 100,000, as high as around 102, 103,000, and sort of have been bouncing back and forth between, I guess, five figures and six figures, even, early in the week on Tuesday morning, Australian time, we actually went back above 100,000 before crashing all the way back down to 93,000. So a lot of volatility around that, psychologically significant milestone. A lot of liquidations happening as well at the moment. In fact, at the time of recording, just a few hours ago, we have seen what is now being, I suppose, remembered as the biggest liquidation, I guess, event in the market's existence. Sort of a function of it being, I guess, at all-time high market caps. You're seeing a lot more dollar value worth of liquidations happening. So we saw around 1.5 billion US dollars worth of liquidations happen, just in recent hours. So again, just a sign of a lot of people getting overexposed in terms of leverage, and you saw a sort of cascading effect of, I suppose, longs having to sell their positions at any price and sort of cover their positions, and you sort of see all that spiraling out. So for people waiting on the sidelines who were patient, they were able to get in around 94 or so thousand US dollars, and that only happened very briefly. But we can expect more of this. We've been saying it all along. These liquidation events will continue to happen throughout the bull market. They're just a natural sort of function of any market, really. So more of these will come in the future. But as you can see on your screen there, over the past 7 days, Bitcoin is still up slightly, ETH as well. XRP down by about 20% in the past 7 days. And BNB there, I think, hit all-time highs during the past week or so. That is up 7% for the week. So all sorts of returns happening in the market at the moment. But really, the question on everyone's lips is where to next for Bitcoin. We've long said that we expect it to get into the six figures by the end of this bull market. It did that briefly in recent days. And now everyone sort of is wondering what's next. I'll get up on my screen here, Nick, the newsletter that you really covered this topic in depth.
Yeah, there's a few, I think, things to look forward to. The number one thing, I think, is the Bitcoin strategic reserve. So there was even rumors, I'm not sure if you saw this back, but the last hours or so, talk about Russia potentially having their own Bitcoin reserve. For me, that's still pretty unsubstantiated for what I saw. So be keen to see if there's any truth to those rumors. But then we saw like countries like Brazil, the US start to introduce these bits of legislation. So that's going to be the number one, I think, factor on, I guess, how high this rally does go. Because we've spoken before that, hey, if that does happen, I think everyone's price targets are probably way under, really. And it's really difficult to know how high things could go if you have the US or major countries buying Bitcoin to back a reserve. Very unlikely, but that's just the one thing I think that would really dominate the market.
Yeah, definitely. It's absolutely the biggest variable for this bull market. And I suppose when you're talking about what's next for Bitcoin, you have to acknowledge, the strategic Bitcoin reserve and what path that bill will go on in the US in particular. I think a lot of the market is more or less expecting Donald Trump to at least say, hey, the US government, we don't want to be selling any of our existing Bitcoin holdings. I think if that were to come out and he was to announce that, I don't think people would be overly surprised. Maybe you might see a bit of an uptick in the price of Bitcoin, but I think what everyone is looking at is that whole strategic reserve sort of component, which, as you sort of just described there, Nick, in terms of other things affecting like the outlook for Bitcoin, they're all secondary compared to this. But I would say the selections of who is going to be the treasurer or even the SEC chair, which we'll get into soon. So in other words, like who else is Trump going to select and put around him in terms of being a pro crypto sort of administration? And also other factors I'm watching is just the inflation rate in the US and globally. If inflation comes back, I think that might be put the brakes a bit on the rapid appreciation of Bitcoin that we've seen recently. But so far, looks like inflation is under control. But yeah, if you want various other reasons of what we're watching that will affect the price of Bitcoin in the foreseeable future, absolutely look at our most recent issue of the weekly shift newsletter there.
For me, the most underrated, I think, where to from now is the slow and steady accumulation of Bitcoin. Was a huge deal earlier in the year. We saw Fidelity and even BlackRock start to buy some of its Bitcoin ETFs to back some of its funds. It's that it has its global allocation reserve, and then Fidelity is offering I think 1% on its conservative funds, and then 3% to some of its more aggressive funds. So this is huge, and once we see this rolled out completely across the board, and it's just so normal to have Bitcoin exposure into these products. It's the one thing that slow and steady, and no one really tends to think about it, but they're just slowly accumulating Bitcoin off the open market, which is absolutely huge and something we wouldn't have seen years past.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really good point there, and one that it's often very forgotten about very commonly. We'll see also, as Nick touched on, we had our summit last week. So thank you for everyone who tuned in to our Crypto Investor Summit. And the recordings are now available as promised. So yeah, it was a full-on day as capped off with the 100,000 milestone being hit, as Nick explained earlier. And you can see all of our sessions in this playlist that we will link to in the show notes. But you can see here talks about the 4-year cycle, whether it is still going to play out in the future, and various other topics you can see on your screen there. Nick, was there one in particular that stood out for you in terms of our sessions that we had on the day?
So the ones that I moderated were the Ethereum, where to from now, considering Ethereum's struggle in 2024. A lot of questions on Ethereum, so we had some really good guests on. Key lesson for me was, hey, there's still a lot of building going on in the Ethereum ecosystem, and it's more so just trying to work out, this separation of Ethereum, the blockchain, that is still being widely used and supported by a lot of developers. And I know Nathan was talking about how there's still a lot of investment. So Nathan was an ex-Collective Shift research analyst, and now he's heading up, investing in Polygon Ventures. He's saying there's still a lot of appetite for Ethereum investment and building going on. That was probably a key theme for me. A lot of people seem to forget about the huge developer ecosystem that Ethereum has, and it's a real competitive advantage that it has over a lot of different ecosystems and newer blockchains just starting out. We did a narratives one as well. So looking at, what are the things, research team looking at, and then, what's on our agenda for next year in terms of core narratives in the market. So we talked a lot about, I think, AI coins. We talked about, those newer layer ones in the market. So real world assets, whether they'll still continue to outperform as a key sector, meme coins. So a lot of action-packed stuff. And if you have over the weekend, no shortage of content to dive into. How about for yourself, Matt?
Yeah, I really like the Ethereum session that you had here with Nathan, Anthony, and Samira. And yeah, I think, again, as you said, I think it's overblown a lot of the negative sentiment around Ethereum just because it hasn't performed as well at the moment. But really, I think moving into 2025, there's still a lot to look forward to, as you just explained before. And all it's going to take is a few tweaks of some improvements from the outside, potentially sort of a staked component to the ETF, as you sort of discussed in this session, for the outlook on Ethereum to really improve. So that was one I in particular enjoyed listening to. And of course, we'll link to all of them in this playlist that you can watch as well. Heading into the next section here, we have outside of ETH, we've got a lot of dino coins, as we like to call them, or just old ancient sort of coins from previous market cycles that have really gone on a strong run in recent days, and in particular at the start of last week. Nick, as I get my screen up here, maybe just break down what's been going on.
Yeah, because this really all stemmed from the rally that XRP saw. One of the best performers in the market continued to post strong gains. I think it was up 400 to 500% before the latest pullback. And this really made me dive into, where we're wrong about XRP. Did a bit of a deep dive into that. But one of the key lessons here was when we zoomed out and asked ourselves, is this just exclusive to XRP? Which really looking at coin market cap performance by some of these older 2017 coins, even earlier coins, it really showed us that, hey, XRP isn't alone here. And there are a lot of similar older coins from previous market cycles that we're pumping. So these were often called sort of dino coins, dinosaur coins, because they're not as widely used by the rest of the market. So it's very interesting to see when they start to pump, because that tells us a lot about where we are in the market. So we got even outside of things like XRP and Cardano, we got things like HBAR, we got things like VeChain, and then even older coins, which I would consider not a lot of people developing or building on, such as Algorand or EOS. EOS was pumped about 260% in that same period that XRP was up about 450%. We even saw IOTA, which was an old Internet of Things coin that was kind of the it kid on the block in about that 2018 period. That was up 432%. So it performed the same as XRP. Other coins like Tezos, even things like Neo, which is completely dead, pumped 158% to outperform the market. So this tells us a big signal that, hey, maybe the rally for XRP isn't totally organic, driven by network fundamentals, but we're seeing a lot of older coins that people were holding start to outperform and see a lot of inflows pushing the prices up, which tends to be the case when we're seeing local tops of the kind of the later stages of the bull market, where maybe retail gets in and kind of starts trading the old coins that they were interested in and kind of starts paying attention to the space again. So really interested to see some of these performances from a lot of coins that I would really consider dead or not really widely used.
Yeah, everyone I was sort of in my circles was very confused with the price action. But yeah, for those who still have been holding all these years, I suppose you might want to check your old balances. But sticking with altcoins, we've got Bitwise, submitting an application to turn its crypto index fund, which consists of 10 different assets, turning that into an actual ETF. So they've had this product for quite a while now. The vast majority, I believe around 80%, maybe even higher, is comprised of Bitcoin and ETH. But they've also included several other assets in that index fund, including some that are in the crosshairs of the SEC, or at least under Gary Gensler. So notable names there include Uniswap. So I think Bitwise sort of, assuming, pro crypto, the Trump administration will be more favorable towards crypto, including the new SEC chair, who we'll get to soon. Sort of trying to get ahead of the curve here and include these assets in an ETF. So we'll see how this goes. And really, I suppose in more broadly, we've seen a lot more altcoins appearing in different ETF applications over there in the US. So just as a reminder, we only have Bitcoin and Ethereum at the moment as spot ETFs in the US. But people trying to get prepared for a potentially application approval from the SEC. And of course, as we've said other times as well, it's also a business decision. So just because an altcoin can get approved by the SEC, it's also a decision by the issuers about whether they can actually make a profit, or if they can afford to maybe take a loss on these ETFs if there actually isn't much demand from the market. So another consideration to have there as well. But in terms of pro crypto news, it did continue in the US last week, at least seemingly, with some certain appointments by Trump. Nick, can you talk us through this one here?
Yeah, it was the one that everyone was looking forward to. Who's going to replace Gary Gensler as the chair of the SEC? And it looks like it's confirmed now. Trump posted on social media that it's going to be Paul Atkins will succeed him in this role. So this is a huge one. We're all looking forward to a possibly pro-crypto SEC chair. Historically, we haven't had that the last 4 years. It's been pretty hostile. So Atkins comes with a pretty solid background of being pro-crypto. He's spoken openly about being supportive of the industry. And he actually co-chaired a few things. He co-chaired, I think, the Token Alliance at the Digital, I think, Chamber of Commerce. So he's been pretty notable for his position in the space, and has been on a few of these boards in government. Was also, I think, on the board of Securitize, if I'm not mistaken, which was a cryptocurrency startup that was looking to tokenize real-world assets and bring them on chain. And Securitize got investment from BlackRock, notably earlier in the year. So huge deal here, and it looks like he's going to be widely positive. And from what I've been hearing in a lot of podcasts and around Twitter, he's really not a pro, or he's anti-crypto by enforcement, which was kind of the way the industry has been navigating the last 4 years, where a lot of these cryptocurrencies, there hasn't been a lot of new rules issued or clarification or meetings. It's been a lot of enforcement actions on the space as a sort of a please explain. So huge deal here, but I'm not sure your thoughts on this, Matt. Does he move the needle completely? I know there's a lot of discussion about, hey, he can't just go in guns blazing, swinging. Gary Gensler has actually, I've seen, promoted a few people from within. So there's a lot of people still in the SEC that is probably on the sort of Gensler side of being anti-crypto. So that's something that I wonder if the market is totally anticipating.
I think also recent resignation of another SEC commissioner from the Democratic side, that may also help this incoming Atkins. But yeah, I think on your point there of the SEC current chair Gary Gensler seems to be still trying to make some moves behind the scenes, and hear news about still secret promotions, signaling a looming regulatory crackdown, even though there will be leadership changes. So that's according to John Reed Stark, his sort of opinion on what he's hearing behind the scenes there. But yeah, I think there's a lot to still play out, Nick, to your point. And really, it'll be a lot more clear really in about 2 months' time, I think, with the actual people finalized. Trump will already now have started his presidential term. So Atkins seemingly seems like a really solid candidate for I guess his advocacy for crypto, but people were saying the same thing about Gary Gensler. So time will tell whether this does help the crypto space, but I think most people expect it to. In terms
I also
of,
thought there was another appointment as well there, Matt. I think David Sachs, he's a pretty notable startup founder and investor in the venture capital space. He was announced as the first crypto AI czar, sort of this new role that's created as a sort of a go-between, I think, between White House and emerging technology on things like crypto AI. Huge deal here, and Sachs is quite notably an early investor in Solana and a couple other crypto companies. So it looks like he's going to help lead some and establish some legal frameworks for crypto regulation and kind of advise on these high profile matters. Were you shocked at this one? I kind of was. I really didn't anticipate it. There was talk about maybe the role just being crypto only, but it looks like they're kind of clumping it all together.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be blended with AI, but certainly the caliber of person, or I suppose with the background and reputation and experience in David Sachs, has certainly been an advocate for crypto. So it's great to see him being leading this sort of crypto special group, along with it also being AI. So this was overall seen as, again, really, really positive for crypto, and another reason to be excited. In terms of what comes out of this group, time will tell. And again, you could argue AI is a lot more of a priority for the US and globally compared to something small like crypto. So that was somewhat of a negative if I was to look for one. But yeah, great to see David Sachs involved here and another appointment. So really, I think we've only got, is the treasurer probably the only big one left, Nick, in terms of big appointments left?
I think pretty much. So slowly by slowly, these roles are being filled, and it looks like they are all really pro crypto. So there hasn't been any kind of backflips on Trump's stance to install a lot of pro crypto leaders in these high profile positions. The big thing now is just making sure that are saying these all accept those nominations now, and looks like from all reports that will be going ahead.
Yeah, and speaking of the US government, there's still this transition period before Trump gets in, and there was movement of their government wallets, last week, where around 2 billion worth of Bitcoin was sent to Coinbase Prime. So again, this may have spooked the market slightly. We also saw some movement from the Mt. Gox wallets last week as well. So just, I think more so, including this more so as a heads up, that things like this may keep happening for the foreseeable future. Overall, in a bear market, I think it would have more of an impact, but mostly a non-story, particularly now that we've got this deal that we've explained on this podcast before with Coinbase and the US government sort of, I guess, collaborating with Coinbase, essentially looking after that Bitcoin that's in the US government's wallets. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one heading into next year. In terms of other areas of regulation around the world, Australia had some updates last year. Nick, what happened here?
Yeah, so we finally have some proposals on new guidelines for crypto firms. These kind of proposal rules, I think, would force a lot of crypto firms in Australia to obtain financial licensing kind of frameworks, which isn't too much of a shock, really. It looks like they're going to go down the path of not installing new, unique laws to govern the cryptocurrency laws industry in Australia. So it places a lot of, I think, digital assets under this category of financial products. Obviously, it isn't legal advice at all, but a final version looks like it's going to be expected in mid-2025 after some more feedback from the industry. But from what all I saw from a few lawyers on crypto Twitter is that it's probably some of the more stricter, side of how they could have, regulated the industry, perhaps. Some comments saying that might force some cryptocurrency firms to move offshore. But a lot of that's, really has to be seen in the market to see what happens here. But, government moves pretty slow, so I wouldn't even be surprised to see any more drag backs on that date. And maybe it's going to take until 2026 until anything actually is implemented.
Yeah, thanks. Well, that consultation is open at the moment, and we'll see that deadline come early next year, I believe. So Amazon has also copied Microsoft in a sense, and actually there is a proposal suggesting that Amazon should consider investing in Bitcoin again for similar reasons for MicroStrategy as Microsoft, to protect shareholder value from inflation. So I assume they are having a meeting coming up similar to Microsoft there, where they will vote on this in the 2025 annual shareholder meeting. So we'll see if Michael Saylor is called upon to pitch Bitcoin, much like he did with Microsoft last week. So again, good to see Bitcoin being in the news, headlines to do with Amazon. Similar to Microsoft, we don't expect this to actually be passed by the board of Amazon. But hey, it's a possibility for sure. And then in terms of altcoin season, we have seen altcoins heat up recently. A bit of a sell-off today, but we do have this index here where currently at a score of 69. So that is saying here it's not altcoin season, but over 75% would be considered being altcoin season according to this one particular metric. So people have been waiting for it for a very long time. It sort of hinted at coming earlier last week, but now we've gone back below that sort of critical threshold there. And then in terms of some altcoin updates, sort of had an unfortunate story or start to this one with Haley Welch, a meme coin there, essentially being accused of being a rug pull. So that launched on Solana, like a lot of these celebrity meme coins, and the token or ticker there is HAWK. And yeah, really a lot of millions of dollars worth of value collapsed within 15 minutes or so. So a lot of people angry, frustrated there. I think, as we've said before, a lot of these are really just gambling. If you're looking at investing in them, I would strongly encourage you to just be aware of what these meme coins are. And a lot of times you do see situations like this where it seems like there was some control from within a team that created it, and they sort of just tried to take profits as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, there. In terms of Pudgy Penguins, they had an update as well. So they are now the second largest NFT collection, only behind CryptoPunks. So they've done extremely well. Now selling toys and whatnot in Big W here in Australia. And they've just continued to really put on a showcase, really, of how to build a brand and IP. They finally announced what has long been rumored, and that is a Pengu token launching. This will be on the Solana blockchain. And then they do intend on making it a multi-chain token in the future. Of course, making it possible and making it supported on the abstract chain, which is Pudgy's sort of blockchain that they're working on at the moment. That's intended to be going live quite soon, from what I believe. So yeah, a big win there for Pudgy Penguins. And yeah, I think the price of a big Pudgy Penguin now is around 70 to 90,000 US dollars last time I checked. So in Australian dollars, yeah, you're getting well into the six figures there, and they're expected to receive a very large airdrop for this Pengu token, and then also a big airdrop from the abstract chain token once that actually goes live in a few months or so.
Big week in Ethereum L2 ecosystem. Base attracted a lot of attention. They come out and I think hit a fresh all-time high on a few metrics, such as I think total transactions. So they broke 10 million for the first time, and really, I think telling graph that shows really consistently and up to the right in terms of adoption. We've always talked about Base as being kind of the hidden onboarding with Coinbase to really get a lot of people on chain, and it's really looking like it's following that way with huge traction on Base. And I think their TVL is slowly creeping up. Athena, probably one of the most underrated projects in the space, I feel like, also hit an all-time high of, I think, their supply of their USDE kind of, quote unquote stablecoin. That hit 4.5 billion. That's one I'm really looking forward to next year, especially as a lot of people look towards, I think, earning more yield on their stablecoin, because of course at the moment it's kind of dicey in terms of how you can get yield on some of these stablecoins. A lot of people are missing out on a lot of value by holding stables without getting any of that native yield. So Athena's product there offers a unique blend, I think, of yield on stables. So huge deal here for Athena. I think they're in for a big 2025 Arbitrum, finally another big Ethereum L2, first to hit 20 billion TVL. So although I think that Arbitrum token has really struggled and underperformed, especially other Ethereum tokens and L2s in the last couple of months, its on-chain metrics are looking strong when we look at TVL.
Yeah, and we also had Sui getting integrated with Phantom, so a really fast-growing wallet, essentially a MetaMask competitor. And yeah, that integration really helped, I suppose, send the Sui token's price even higher. So it was rallying particularly strongly last week amid all the excitement with Bitcoin hitting all-time highs, as pulled back with all the altcoins. But yeah, a big win there for Sui, getting an integration in the fastest growing wallet out there. In terms of things to look forward to, really the treasurer selection is the one who's going to be treasurer for under the Trump administration. We also have the Federal Reserve announcing their next interest rate decision in a bit over a week's time. In terms of underrated and overrated, Nick, what is your one this week?
Yeah, I didn't see anybody really mention the Anchorage Digital News. They're the first OCC chartered, I think, US regulated bank to support a lot of cryptocurrency. They come out and were the first, I think, to support liquid staking, and are now offering institutions access to, their liquid collective, ETH staking. So essentially, they're providing an avenue to get access to the Ethereum staking yield. Huge deal here, because I never really would anticipate this would have happened, really, if maybe Harris had one and people would be more risk off in terms of releasing crypto products. I even saw this in the last couple of weeks with USDC airdropping yield on their USDC to token holders. Now, I would be very surprised if that would have happened if Trump didn't win the election. So for me, this is kind of a look into what a more favorable regulatory environment is going to look like, in the US now, with Anchorage, with one of the biggest, I think the only registered custodian too, at the moment. So huge deal here, and hopefully we see more of these positive news stories and adoption of people not afraid to release products like this and services in the US. So huge deal here. How about yourself, Matt? What caught your eye?
Yeah, great find there. For me, underappreciated was just news coming out of China that they're really trying. They've been really struggling ever since COVID in terms of getting back to economic growth that they were a rate that they were at before COVID, and that's really sort of dragged down global economic growth. So they're trying to bolster that. They have been trying this year unsuccessfully, and they're looking at even continuing to up that stimulus into 2025. So I think this is very underappreciated with so much focus on the US and other countries. China ultimately is the world's second largest economy. So if they're going to get even more aggressive with their loosening of monetary policy, continuing the fiscal stimulus, and who knows, even becoming more open to, I guess, allowing their citizens to buy and sell crypto, which is also a wild card in terms of next year. I think, China is really being slept on and could be another reason that is sort of driving the price of Bitcoin ultimately higher heading into next year. So watch that one for sure. But that does bring us to a close for this week. What was a historic week for crypto with 100,000 for Bitcoin there. But if you are looking for more insights, see our revamped weekly shift newsletter, providing free weekly market insights every Friday. Subscribe at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. That's collectiveshift.io/newsletter.